Alright, welcome to my tutorial on how to cook creamy garlic pork chops with a side of roasted sweet potatoes. Now, to start, you want to get your pan preheating on medium-high, and then you want to get your oven preheated to 425 for the potatoes. Speaking of potatoes, I had them sitting in water overnight to keep them dry, or keep them nice and moist. You can store from up to 2 days in cold water in the fridge when they're cut up. So we're gonna take those and put them on our lined baking sheet. And then after that, just spread them out. And you wanna take, you wanna take your olive oil and you just wanna spread that on there. And then you take your seasoning, which I didn't put one of these in a fun little dish, but after that, you just want to get them nice and combined. You just take this and you just toss them together and get all of them nice and seasoned. I'm using foil. I usually would use parchment for this, but I couldn't find any, so I decided to use foil. Alright, now it's evenly coated. So once you get them all evenly coated, you want to spread them out like so none of them are really covering each other. And you can let them sit for a little bit, but you don't have to. But I'm gonna let them sit for a little bit just to get in that seasoning. And then once they're ready, and once the oven's ready, we'll toss them in there, and they're gonna sit for they're gonna go for 30 minutes, and about 15-20 minutes in, you want to flip them every so often. Just give them flip a few of them so they can cook evenly on each side. Now after I wash my hands, I'll be back. Now you want to grab your oven mitt. Make sure you wear an oven mitt whenever you do this, just so you don't burn yourself. Because the last thing you need is to be injured while cooking. Cooking's supposed to be fun. All right, so you take the potatoes and put them on the top rack, like so. And now we'll set a timer for 30 minutes and hit start. And then at 15 minutes, we'll check them, we'll flip them, see how they're doing in there. And now, after the break, we'll start our pork chops. All right, now our pan's all preheated. Actually, gonna turn it down just a little bit. Our pan's all preheated. So you want to take your pork chops and you want to season each side liberally with salt and pepper. You just want to get all that pepper in there, really add the flavor to the chops. Get some salt. And if you have a preference on salt or pepper, freshly cracked, stuff like that, you can go for it, but I'm using the old classic stuff. And when it comes to either putting salt or pepper first, it doesn't matter too much. You just kind of grab pinches, put it on there. Just add some nice flavor to your chops. Move that one out of the way. Grab this one. Dump the rest of it on there. Make sure you get it all in every crack, crevice, and what you may have. All right, now after I wash my hands, we'll show you how to cook these things. All right, so our skillet's all nice and hot. So we're going to grab 1 tablespoon of our butter. that melt a little bit. And then get our olive oil in there. Let go around. And make sure when you're working with oil, you be careful about letting it hit your skin at all. And also, it'll smoke a little bit, but don't be too afraid. And also make sure you turn your oven fans on. All right, so now we want to grab our chops. And while those are cooking, you just want to make sure they get a nice sear on each side. We're gonna wait till they register about probably 110 internal, and just keep an eye on them. You know, they're not gonna cook immediately, but they're also not gonna cook slow. So just keep an eye on them, and all right, so it's been about 5-7 minutes. So with these thicker chops, you want to let them sit on the side a bit more. And now we're going to go ahead and flip. And look at that nice sear on there. And then you want to flip them both. And you want to let them cook again. With chops like these, they'll try to curl up around here. So you just got to make sure that those sides are getting pushed down. And we're going to let these cook until they reach about 125 internal. Not quite done, but also not quite done, but not quite, I don't know what the word is. Anyway, but you just don't want them cooked all the way, but almost done, because we're gonna put them back in the pan later when we cook them with our sauce. So, like I said, you just wanna let these cook till they reach about 125 internal, and we'll see you back then. All right, it's about 15 minutes into our potatoes, so let's give them a look. And always be careful when you open your ovens for the hot air, just in case you don't burn yourself. Those are looking nice. And we're gonna want to grab, just go ahead and use the spatula. Go ahead and move some of them around so they can get evenly cooked. All right. And the spice mixture on those potatoes, you know, it's just salt, pepper, a little bit of cumin, a little bit of garlic powder, some chili pepper powder. You know, it's not too complex. It's about a fourth of a teaspoon for each, except for the pepper. That's 1/8 because pepper's kind of strong. There's also paprika in there, so it's all about a fourth. And then the olive oil is about 1 tablespoon, give or take. So about 1 tablespoon of olive oil on those potatoes, and then you toss them up with all those spices. It'll give it a nice flavor. All right, so our chops are registering about, you want to wait till, like I said, about till 125 internal, because we're gonna put them back in later. So you want to take them off the heat and put them on a tray to cool them and let them set. You don't have to cover them, but you could. Just let them set for a little bit. Set those off to the side. And now we want to turn the heat down a little bit. Kind of move that stuff in there around. And we'll take it off the heat for a second and toss in another half a tablespoon of butter. And we'll toss in our garlic cloves. It's about half a clove of garlic. You can always do more if you'd like. And then we'll let those kind of mingle around. Move the butter around. Then we can just put it back on the heat now. I just wanted to let the pan cool down a little bit so we don't burn our butter or burn our garlic. And you want to let the garlic sit in that butter, you know, give that butter a nice taste. And then after that, once the garlic starts to get fragrant and brown a little bit, so it hasn't browned quite yet, but it's kind of getting there. You can see it a little bit. It's getting a little brown. And then I'd say that's about good. So you want to do this. You want to get your garlic to one side and your butter to the other. Move all your butter back to one side. And try to keep your garlic away as best as possible. Then you want to take 1 tablespoon of flour and add it to that butter. We're going to make a roux here. Now, roux, they're pretty easy to mess up, but this, you just want to add the flour to the butter and toss it around. Let it sit for a little bit. And once that's a nice golden brown like that, we're gonna add in our chicken broth. It's about 1/4 of a cup of chicken broth. And we're gonna add in a 1/8 of a cup of lemon juice. Or not 1/8 of a cup, an eighth of a teaspoon. And let that incorporate. Until it gets like a nice golden brown. So it doesn't look too bad. We'll turn on the heat a little bit more because this is kind of like a low and slow, you know, just like stir it up, let all the flavors incorporate. Once it's all incorporated, we're gonna add in about 1/2 a cup and 2 tablespoons of heavy whipping cream. So we're gonna pour that in slowly to let it temper. And just let that all incorporate. And we're gonna add in an 1/8 of a teaspoon garlic powder. Like nice garlic powder out of there. And start just stirring that up. Let all that incorporate. Let that all just blend nicely together for a nice flavor. And once it starts to thicken a little bit, then we're gonna add the chops back in. Alright, so once your sauce is thickened up a decent bit, you wanna take your chops and add those back into the sauce. Just set them right down in it. Set them right down in the sauce. Get those meat juices in there too. That's all it's gonna do is add more flavor. And we'll just start moving the sauce around in there, trying to get them all set down in the sauce. And we'll turn the heat back up a little bit. And we wanna cook these chops so they register about 145, 150, so they're safe to eat. Because there's no point in eating food if it ain't safe. But you also need to eat. So if you're gonna eat, might as well make sure you're safe. All right, so some of our dishes out of the way. Take a different tray because they weren't all the way cooked when we put them on the one tray. And they register from 145 to 150 to 155 because we gotta let them rest anyway. So it's not gonna be a bad thing if they aren't quite at 150, 155. And it sounds like our potatoes are done too. So we're gonna let those sit.
I'm only taking one bite.
All right, and then we can save that later as a little topping for them. Set that off to the side. Make sure to turn our ovens off. Now, pork's a little different from beef. You always want to make sure it registers 145 to to 155 if they're thicker chops like we had today. But with beef, usually you want to go about 165 to keep it in the safe range if you don't want to risk food poisoning. But now let's grab our potatoes. Oh yeah, those are looking very nice.
Oh my god. Okay, no, it's fine. Wait, why is my timer still going?
We set those there. We let those rest for a little bit. And once it's all done and plated up, we'll be back with you. All right, and this is our finished product. How you want to plate this properly is you want to see, I did the sweet potatoes because they have a nice color. They bring more of a pop to the plate because this is like a nice tan cream color. And this is a nice orange color. And they go really well together. And if you make this recipe, you know, I think you're going to have a good time because it's quite nice.